You're listening to trailblazers.fm, an interview-styled podcast that delves deep into bold conversations with successful Black entrepreneurs and leaders. Join us weekly to learn actionable strategies, valuable tactics, and innovative tools that you can put to use immediately on your journey to blazing your trail. And now, here's your host, my husband, Stephen A. Hart.
And yet again, I never fail at the mute button. Listen, good morning. My name is Stephen A. Hart. I'm the host of the trailblazers.fm podcast. If this is your first time joining one of my live streams, just want to say thank you so much for being here. For the past 5 years, I've had the pleasure of interviewing over 200 amazing and successful Black entrepreneurs and leaders. Folks like our guest today, who was one of my OGs, one of the very first people to say yes to being a guest on this podcast. And since then, it's been my goal to document these fascinating and extraordinary Black leaders and Black stories to help teach actionable strategies, valuable tactics, and innovative tools that hopefully you can put to use immediately in your goal, your journey to blaze your trail. Allow me today to introduce our featured guest, a returning guest, a brother from another for the past 25 plus years.
Oh, man.
Right? Tyvi Small. Welcome, my brother.
Thank you for having me, Stephen. How you doing, my brother?
I am fantastic. I am doing great this morning, man. I'm blessed to have you here.
Absolutely.
The Mr. Bowtie himself.
Yeah, I wore a bow tie for you. I was gonna just keep it casual, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna rock the bow tie. I'm going on with my brother, so I gotta step up my game.
I'm rocking my Muhammad Ali today.
I love it.
Free to be what I want to be.
Absolutely.
Listen, Tyvi is Vice Chancellor for Diversity and Engagement at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. Mm-hmm. A native of?
Cahokia, Florida.
Cahokia, Florida.
Yeah, the big city.
Absolutely. Listen, Tyvi and I met back. Tyvi, when did you start USF?
96.
You started 96. That's 96. What I thought. So I came in 95.
Yeah.
So officially 25 years, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
This summer.
Old school, man. We are old school.
This summer, that's crazy. So Tyvi graduated from University of South Florida with a bachelor's degree in communication, a master's degree in education, currently a PhD candidate.
Yes, eventually.
Eventually?
I'm looking at August.
You're looking at August.
Yeah.
For Dr. Small.
Absolutely.
I love it. Listen, lots happened.
Right.
Since you were first on the podcast 5 years ago.
Right.
So much. I mean, just the last year alone is like 5 years onto itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me something that you're grateful for when you think about, just the long term or even just the immediate last couple of days. Something that you're most grateful for right now.
Stephen, as a man of faith, I think that's what grounds me. So I'm always grounded and rooted in my faith. Yeah. And I think what I'm grateful for really is just is family. This last year has been really tough on my family with COVID. We lost, I lost my mom, my aunt, and two uncles, all within a 32-day time period. And so right now, I'm definitely thankful for family and thankful for, the love that surrounds us. And so that's really what I've been thankful for over the last 18, 19 months.
Wow, my brother, my condolences, man. I didn't realize you had that much loss in it.
Yeah.
Wow. Mm. Blessings to you, my brother.
I appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
Listen, before we get into our conversation today, I just want to first off thank all of our Blazer Nation community. I see a few of you rocking with us over on LinkedIn. Good morning to Annette, hanging with us from Toronto, Canada. Ralston, down in Jamaica. Craig the Barber.
Craig, good morning.
Good morning, my sister Minda Harts. And for everybody else watching on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, good morning to you. I am blessed to have the world's most amazing mother-in-law. And so I just want to wish Dr. Letitia Clark a happy birthday. God bless you today and always.
Happy
wishing
birthday.
you many more years of health and happiness and being the amazing yaya that you are to my two crumb snatchers. This weekend, tomorrow, is Juneteenth. And this is a very different kind of year, right? We had news this week of President Biden signing a bill making Juneteenth a federal holiday.
Right.
How long have you, was Juneteenth always a day that you were aware of, that you celebrated? What does this day signify for you?
So a couple things. So I did not grow up celebrating Juneteenth, and really it wasn't until I became an adult that I even knew about the holiday. And if you think about it, this has been happening for decades, right?
Yeah.
But it is now, I think, in most broader communities, it is now becoming recognized and understood. So when you think about even the history of Juneteenth, you talk about 1862 when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, and General Granger didn't issue General Order Number 3 in Texas until 3 years later. And so folks in Galveston, those folks who were formerly enslaved and peoples in Galveston, really started to just celebrate freedom and celebrate, their emancipation, if you will. So when you think about the history of it, it really still harkens back to the history of our nation, where people had certain freedoms, but they really weren't able to live those out until years later. And so, as I think about this Juneteenth celebration, I'm excited that it's a recognition of freedom for people of color, Black people, and formerly enslaved. But I also do think that we have to put it in context, right? So you have to contextualize Juneteenth with everything else. Like, so we passed Juneteenth, this holiday, right? So we passed that. But when you still look at what's happening across state legislatures across the country, where they're restricting, access to the ballot, when they're still thinking about, they're still creating economic hardships in many of our communities, when the law, the government itself is still in some respects creating barriers for people to live their whole lives. I think on one hand, you celebrate Juneteenth, but on the other hand, you say that's a step in the right direction, but there is still more that has to be done. So I'm certainly contextualizing this, celebrating it, excited about it, but also realizing there's still more work that has to be done. Yeah.
And I appreciate you bringing that up. I know that you have spent your career in the higher education realm.
Right.
And I know, even in that vein, it's still not yet where we're teaching this in our schools, right?
Right.
Talk to me about some of the things that, you're working on. Tyvi, you have probably an episode that over 200 and probably 50 people have spoken to at this point. I still come back to your episode on leadership.
Right.
And, I acknowledge you, I recognize you as an amazing leader, not only in the institutional space of higher ed, but as a leader in general. So I encourage anybody who is a leader to go back and listen to Tyvi and I's initial episode on Trailblazers. But you're doing some amazing work right now. Talk to us a little bit about, what you're doing and how even this connects, right?
So, and I didn't get into diversity work on purpose. And I think most people who do this work kind of just fall into it. It comes out of passion. You know, my goal in life was to be Johnny Cochran, right? I was going to be a lawyer, and this higher ed thing sort of happened.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, as a man of faith, I really do think that this is where I'm divinely ordered to be and divinely purposed to be, right? So as I think about the work, right, institutional change is hard. It's difficult, particularly when you are working in institutions that have been around for decades, in my case, centuries, right? And so really the way I approach this work and the way I really talk to my team about approaching the work of DEI, it is taken many. So I call it DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Some people now call it diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So it really takes different iterations depending on how you describe the work. But really, I look at it from a structural and systemic perspective. You know, I think, you know, there's some people who approach diversity work from this, I call it the 4 F's of diversity: food, fun, festivals, and famous people, right? And so that has its place in terms of celebrating. But I do think that when we look at organizations and entities, sometimes the very way they're designed are designed to exclude people. It's designed to keep people out. It's designed for people not to bring their whole and authentic self to the workplace every day. And so the work that we do really looks at what are not necessarily what the symptoms are, but what are the root causes, and really addressing those root causes versus thinking about this work from the symptom perspective where, you know, let's have speakers, let's have celebrations, and all those things are important. But think about what the root causes are, because when you talk to the people who are most affected by this work, sometimes what they say they need and sometimes what we prescribe them are totally different things. And so really we're looking at this work on our campus and the work that I do, both on campus, but also in the community from several angles. Number one is you have to be able to think about evaluation and assessment, right? When you do these things, how do you know they're effective? How do you know you're meeting the needs of the people that you want to meet? You know, if you don't take a step back and think about how you're doing the work. Is it meeting the needs? Is it effective? So we really think about it from that perspective. And so on our campus, we're doing these things called diversity action plans. We're doing a whole lot of education, right? Really taking leadership through learnings so they can understand this work, because you can't ask somebody to lead. I can't go to your company and say, listen, you need to do better in diversity, CEO, CFO, if they don't even understand the work. So you really have to have some learnings with leadership in terms of what this work means, how you do it, and how you affect change. The other thing, Stephen, I think is important is when we talk about having people lead people through this work, it takes some really, really, really difficult conversations, right? It gets, one of the things I said at our last call, what I heard, I've heard it before, but it resonated when Susan Packard said, she's a founder of HGTV, co-founder, and she spoke here. And one of the things she talked about is you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And we have to have some uncomfortable conversations. We really have to dig into what this work is. We have to dig into the uncomfortable, messy. This stuff is messy, right? It's uncomfortable, but it's also messy. And you have to dig into that in order to move forward.
We live in a society now, right, where it's my opinion or the highway, right? Yeah. How do we engage in those conversations where, I am passionate? Because I since the George Floyd murder, I've been a part of a DEI task force in the world of cyber, with my own company. Right. And I've been in the room, if you will, of some of those really difficult conversations. And, it takes empathy, it takes perspective to hear, right? To truly listen to, each person's perspective and angle, and, have come in with that open mind, but not everybody is like that, right? How do you guide people through being more open-minded?
You got to create space. There's a thing that we have here called Intergroup Dialogue, where we really create space for people to, I don't want to say a safe space, but a courageous space, so that people can put their authentic selves on the table, so that they can talk about their experiences. so that they can feel comfortable doing that without judgment, without fear, without fear of retribution. And that helps us come to some mutual understanding. Now, I may not ever agree with you. I may never say, you know, I understand. I may never say I agree with your standpoint, but at least I can understand where you're coming from, and I can understand the essence of what makes you you and how you show up every day.
So you don't have to agree.
You don't have to agree.
Right.
But I want to respect you. I can empathize with you, Stephen. I can respect you, and I can respect your humanity. So even if I never agree with you, at least we can have conversations. But civility is something that sometimes we're not taught. We don't understand, right? Well, I can disagree. I could vehemently disagree with you, but still respect your humanity. And that's what I think people don't understand. When you really want to come to mutual understanding, and mutual agreement about whatever it is you're talking about, in terms of where you're going to stand, I think people don't understand that sometimes, and I think that's what we're missing sometimes in our society. It's just the ability to have a conversation.
Yeah. So listen, you're at University of Tennessee, Knoxville. You're in the South, right? Like, you're a part of an institutional structure that's been around for
227 years.
Right. So, you know, how do you navigate? I know you're talking about, you know, having these conversations with leaders, but I mean, you have to get to the point where they even embrace, you know, wanting to have this dialogue. You know, I'm sure there's still many people, right, navigating, and George Floyd's murder, come back to this, was a catalyst last year, right, for companies now saying we have to take a step in the right direction. I've heard a lot of chatter, right, from companies saying, hey, we commit to doing X, but you don't really hear much. Right. Walk me through maybe a couple of things that you've done, right, within the university that allowed you to see some movement.
Right. I think it starts at the top, really. So when you think about this work, when you think about changing institutional culture, it really starts at the top. And I am fortunate on this campus that I have a chancellor who is absolutely committed to this work. So when you talk about leadership, y'all, it starts at the top, right? If you don't have the people who are decision makers, if you don't have people who are decision makers at this, I saw a comment from Jameson, at the top really singing this song, then sometimes it falls on deaf ears. And so I do think that it's important that leadership is committed and they buy in. On our campus, we had some instances before George Floyd that really started to help us move the needle in DE&I. So I started this role in January of 2019, and we had some instances on campus and really in our community that I think prepared us to start to do this work. I think that was really a catalyst for us. We had a few incidents on campus. And so we had already started to build some infrastructure. And we all know, number one, that what gets measured gets done, right? So, you know, the university system now has a DEI metric in every staff's employment evaluation, annual evaluation. Now, there's a DEI metric that everybody, or in our case, it's called IDE, right? Metric, inclusion, diversity, and equity metric that you have to meet, right? And so that then, I think, sends a level of importance to our faculty, staff, and students about the importance of this work. We also have, you know, I can't do this work alone. So we have what we call this academic diversity initiative. So we have folks across the academic colleges, because we're fairly, in the grand scheme, we're a fairly large decentralized institution. So we've created these academic diversity initiatives where every college or every academic unit has a diversity officer, right?
Oh, wow.
Where the rubber meets the road, right? Because I can't do it and my staff can't do it for everybody. Right. If you look at the College of Engineering, the College of Business, the College of Arts and Sciences, they have people in their colleges that are partially supported by my unit that helps them move the needle around diversity, equity, and inclusion. we had some trainers. We brought in good friend of mine. We brought in Corliss Williamson and a good friend of mine, Adriel Hilton, and we really unpacked this book, How to Be an Anti-Racist by Kennedy. I mean, this is with the university leadership. Yeah. Right? So we're talking about chancellor, vice chancellors, deans, and we really talked about, the book. But what we got from that was then how do we create equity-minded campuses, right? Where that we can look at things through an equity lens, right? So how we hire. So we're looking at our hiring processes and practices and reevaluating some of those in terms of how we exclude people intentionally or unintentionally, right? So we're looking at, so we've created a host of things, whether it was having diversity officers in each academic college, whether it was changing our annual evaluation to include a DEI metric. So all of those kinds of things, I think, help move the needle. And then all of the education and learnings that we've done with our faculty, our staff, and our students. All right, so those are some of the things that I think organizations and institutions can do, but nothing takes the place of looking at your institution or your organization through an equity-minded lens, because then you can look at your institutional practices, your institutional policies, your institutional procedures, and really find out where there may be issues versus looking at surface level things. That was a long answer to a very short question.
No, that's all kinds of gems right there, man. I love it.
That's how we're approaching this work, Steve, and that's how we're doing this on our campus. And there are other things that are happening, but I just want to give you kind of some three pivot points.
That's fantastic, man. Big ups to I'm celebrating this morning with my USF mug.
Go Bulls! Go
Listen,
Bulls!
Your frat, your fraternity, they're showing love this morning, man.
Hey, man, I appreciate them being here.
Both Jameson and Craig in the room.
And I got my red tie, my red bow tie.
On the leadership front,
Right.
what it sounds like, you have a team, you have other people, that you're leading. Last we talked, you spoke about mentorship and sponsorship and, leading in this kind of climate, leading within this kind of, area in diversity, where so much it's very trendy, but it's also very sensitive. How are you guiding your team? How are you leading others in this work?
When I think about the people that are on my team, I have a rock star team, but even the newer, younger professionals, you got to have folks that are coachable. And what I try to do is to remove the barriers and to take all of the darts so that my team can do the real work, right? So I try to shield them a lot from the political, because, where we are situated, this work can get political really, really quickly. And so I try to find really great people. I give them the tools that they need to be successful, and then I let them do their work. And what I try to do is to shield them from the political and the minutia that may bog us down so that we can't make impact. Because one of the things I talk about all the time, Stephen, is activity doesn't always equate to impact. People want to do a whole lot of stuff, but the question is, what impact are you making? And so I try to remove the barriers from my team so that they can really make impact on whatever that is. So whether that's in our engagement function, so community engagement reports to me, whether that's in our assessment and evaluation function, our equity and compliance function, our education function, whatever that is, I try to create an environment of trust, right? Of honesty, of openness, of transparency. My team, particularly my senior team, I will not know anything that they don't know, right? There are certain times where I can't share everything, but as much as I can share with them, I'm sharing it with them because I want them to be equipped wholeheartedly to do the work. And so that's what I try to do in my team. In disagreement, a disagreement, I tell you, is paramount to our work, because if I'm the smartest person in the room, then absolutely I'm in the wrong room, right? Because you want to surround yourself with people who know more than you and are smarter than you, and that can, and that can challenge you. So I throw things on the table and I let my staff have at it. And what I've learned is when we all get together and we all have our perspectives, we absolutely come out with a better output than if it was me leading from the hill saying this is what we're going to do. So that's how I try to create my team. And I will tell you, I do not look at disagreement as pathology. I absolutely welcome it, because again, if I'm the smartest person in the room, then I'm in the wrong room.
Right. I love your style of leadership. I always appreciate your perspective on that. Appreciate you sharing that, Tyvi. As you're talking, man, I think back to what you shared at the beginning of this conversation, and I have to ask you. I know you're doing you're doing work that's hard right now, right? So I want to acknowledge you for that. Craig just shared a great comment, right? Like, and I was thinking this, that, if every college and university could just duplicate, a fraction of what you're doing, and I'd add to that, corporations and institutions. But how are you taking care of you in this season, right? How are you? I mean, you shared having, so much loss in such a tight window of time. You're still getting up in the morning and, by the grace of God, getting out and leading people. But how are you taking care of you, my brother?
I could give you a really good answer, but I don't necessarily know if I follow it, because I often tell my team, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So you have to take some time away to recreate and to refresh and to rejuvenate. And I have tried to do that. So even throughout COVID, what my wife and I have tried to do was just take many staycations, right? We are where we are in the state of Tennessee. We're bordered by 7 states. And so, whether it's a weekend and just hop in the car and go to Birmingham, or go to Pigeon Forge at Gatlinburg, or go to Isle of Palms. And so we've been trying to really take time to unplug and really just spend time with family. With so much loss, what I've realized is that tomorrow's not promised to anybody. And so you have to cherish every moment and every day.
Day isn't promised.
Yeah, you're right. And so I try to do that. So Tammy and I travel a lot. We absolutely, we're foodies. Although I'm still a pescatarian. So I haven't had a hamburger, haven't had a steak, haven't had chicken in 10 years. But
I got you covered, man.
We're still foodies. So we travel, we visit places. On our bucket list is to go to all 50 states. And so every year we chomp out a few states that we haven't been to. So we do a lot of that. Before COVID, man, I was working out a whole lot. And so that actually proved to be cathartic to me as well. So that's how I'll try to stay full and filled and fresh, so that we can, come to work the next day and do this difficult work. Because you're right, it's tough. There's some days, man, when I come home and I just pass out on the couch, because it has been one of those days where you felt like you fought, a 10 round match, because of all of the things that are coming at you. And you got to realize that I can't separate. I often talk to my colleagues, particularly on the cabinet, about this. Is I can't separate my Blackness from the work that I do. All right. So sometimes people can approach this work as, all right, I am, I'm the accountant, so I approve ledgers and I do that. But when you do this kind of work, it is ingrained in the essence of who I am. So I can't split it apart. Right. So when we're dealing with the George Floyd issue, murder, or we're dealing with
emotional,
that emotions, I can't separate that emotion of being a Black man in this country from that. And I think that takes a different level of a different toll on those of us who are people of color who do this work than other folks. Right. And so I do think that that's an added piece of the pie that I don't think people understand, is like, when you do that, I can't separate that. Like, I have emotions, right? When that happened, I was upset and I was angry and I was hurt and I was ticked off and all of those emotions, right? And I couldn't separate that from the work that I do.
Appreciate you sharing that, and so much wisdom shared. I could keep talking to you about so much, man. I appreciate having you on. Tyvi, what are you reading right now? What books? I know you talked about being an anti-racist. Are there any other books that you would recommend that we add to our reading queue?
So there are like two sets of books. There's the books that I want to read for pleasure, which I haven't had a chance to because I am focusing on this dissertation. So if you ever wanted to know about the factors associated with the derailment of an African-American college president, which is my derailment, which is my dissertation topic, I got, we can come back on and talk about all of that research that I'm doing for this dissertation. But so if you haven't read How to Be an Anti-Racist, if you haven't been able to, if you haven't read Caste by Isabel Wilkerson, if you haven't read Why All the Black Kids Sitting in at the Same Table by former President Spelman, oh gosh, I remember her name. So there are a few books that I would recommend for anybody who is interested in doing this work. Anything by Ta-Nehisi Coates. The Water Dance I have not read yet. So, but I have it. So I have a stack of books on my shelf that I need to read for pleasure once I finish this dissertation. But right now I am knee deep in articles about presidential derailment, and so I am doing my interviews and writing right now.
Yeah. But
over the last few months, those are some books, and I've started to enjoy books on tape, right? So the funny thing is audiobooks, right? So the funny thing with audiobooks is I can't do audiobooks without following along with the real action.
With the book.
So I found myself double purchasing, right?
I did the same thing.
Yeah. I don't know if folks have read White Fragility. So that's one of the ones that a lot of folks have helped a lot of my colleagues understand this work too. So why is it so difficult for white people to talk about race? So I think there are a lot of by D'Angelo. So I think there are a lot of books out there that can help folks do this work and help them, I think, understand it from a different perspective.
Listen, on this comment from your brother Craig the barber, I just wanted to pause real quick because I wanted to do something a little different today to show love for or Black creators, right?
Yes.
And so let me do this. Let me take Craig's comment off, and I'm gonna do a little setup here. I'm gonna try something. I want to give love to our Black creators, and so want to big up. This is a weekend we're celebrating Juneteenth, but it's also Father's Day weekend, and I'm encouraging our Blazer Nation community to go out and support our Black-owned businesses and definitely our brothers. And so lifting up Craig the Barber this morning, Burke Avenue by Craig the Barber. Please go out and check out his site, support him. I just got my moisturizing shave cream. Took care of this bald head this morning, and he has a really neat 3-in-1 face balm. So supports Craig. The face balm is a great daily moisturizer. He says it's for men. I've heard a lot of women love to get on that moisturizer as well. So show some love, support my brother. So listen, Tyvi, before we let you go, one last question for you.
Yep.
What's one action that our Blazer Nation community should take this week that's going to help them to blaze their trail?
One, okay, just one. I think Blazer Nation. Listen, it isn't for those of us who live this work and who live this. I think we all can learn, and so I would say grab a book. Talk to a friend, figure out what might be something that they're reading. Whether it doesn't have to be any of the books that I mentioned, but educate yourself, particularly those who are not from minoritized or marginalized communities.
Yeah.
Take some time to read. Take some time to figure out what's going on. Take some time to think about these things from a different perspective, right? And so for those of you who might not be people of color, take some time to read or to I don't say educate yourself, but to understand a different perspective. For those of us who are folks of color, I would say take this weekend and just relax. I think that, racial battle fatigue is real. And so sometimes we have to be on because we got to come into spaces and places at work. We have to be strong for the community. We have to be right for everybody and everything else. So I would say take some time to recreate. Take this Juneteenth, and find your favorite beverage, whatever that might be, and just spend time with family and relax. Because again, I said it earlier, and I saw somebody put it in the chat, like you can't pour from an empty cup. So I think that we tend to want to be strong for everybody else, and we tend to want to be present for everybody else, but we got to be present for ourselves too. So I would tell our folks, take some time, be present with your family, and just refill your cup. And for my colleagues who are not folks of color, take some time to read, take some time to understand a different perspective, because that is important. That's important to do so that you can be allies. Allyship is important, but you got to be a true ally. This performative allyship doesn't fly, right? We need real allies. And real allies do the work, and they understand the work, and they can create space and place for people who are doing the work and not necessarily take up space. So I do understand that we have some great allies out there, and I will tell you, my allies, you got to do your work too. You just can't say you're an ally and show up, but you got to do the work on the front end. So those are my parting thoughts, Stephen.
Listen, I appreciate having you on, man. God bless you. God bless the work you're doing. Good luck to you on finishing up your dissertation.
Yes.
And before I let our audience go, I just want to let you know that I am a brand strategist, among many other titles, as a marketer, as a self-labeled best dad ever. But listen, I have over the past 4 years been working at creating an online self-paced course to help professionals who are looking to build a personal brand. And in this season, especially as Black entrepreneurs and leaders, I think it is so very important that we are mindful of our digital footprint. Someone's Googling you, and the results that they find about you are going to leave them more or less inclined to do business with you, to partner with you, or to hire you. I've created an amazing course that doesn't just help you to build a personal brand, but it helps you to become a brand in demand, right? So if you're looking to get clarity on your purpose, on your vision, on the group of people that you work, as Tyvi just mentioned, to impact, right? If you're needing help clarifying your message, developing your brand identity, and at the end of the day, creating meaningful content, creating an offering, whether that's in the leadership and corporate world or as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a creative, beginning to create multiple streams of income, and most importantly for a community, creating real wealth. We need to create wealth in our community. We need to close this racial wealth gap. This course is designed to do all of this. This is something that I've poured a lot of energy over, again, the last 3+ years into. Do me a favor. We are about to get. We're about to launch a cohort this July, and if you're interested in being a part of that, even if you're just interested, I'm going to put up a 6-part video series that's going to start dropping here in about a week. Hop on over to that website shown on this slide, brandindemand.co. That's brandindemand.co. You can sign up there, join our early bird wait list. There's no commitment to putting your name and email there. It will just send you an email when we have that series come up. And at the end of that series, if you're interested in taking part in this cohort, you could do so. That course actually begins mid-July, I believe July 17th. So I just want to put that out there. I think it's an amazing program that, you know, will absolutely, it's my heart to help heart-centered entrepreneurs and leaders to live and leave their legacy. So that said, go out this week, have a fantastic week, and I will see you all on Monday. God bless. Thanks for spending time with us today. If we aren't yet connected, let's keep the conversation going on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Now, we grow when you subscribe, share, and invite others to check us out. We believe that others who consume these stories will be moved to make significant changes that have generational impact for many others, both now and well into the future. Blazer Nation, go out today and keep